All right, let's talk Terrain 10 and metabolic health and how the two shall meet. Since we're releasing Metabolic Health Day on 10/10, it's important to talk about the Terrain 10. So, first, when I think about terrain, I want to think about how do the things we put in, on, or around us affect our terrain, the health of our internal ecosystem, and how does that then directly impact our metabolic health? So, I'm going to go through just briefly and tell you one or two things around each of the Terrain 10 drops in the bucket that may help you inquire deeper about your own metabolic health from a Terrain 10 perspective. So, number one, epigenetics, above the gene. What were the family tendencies prior to you? Great grandparents, grandparents, parents, siblings, aunts, uncles, extended cousins. What are some of the healthcare patterns you see over and over in your family of origin, in your family tree that you're aware of? Is it cardiovascular disease, thyroid disease, mental illness, addictions? Is it cancer? Is it diabetes, Alzheimer's? When you see patterns such as Alzheimer's, diabetes, polycystic ovarian syndrome, right then and there, we know those are very metabolic driven conditions. But it also often surprises people that cardiovascular disease, autism, mental illness are also metabolic diseases. So when you look upstream to see if those were propensities in your family of origin, that probably gives you a clue that you also have a vulnerability to metabolic dysfunctional patterns. So awareness is really key. Get curious. If you're able to understand your family of origin health, that gets you an idea of maybe what you need to be looking out for and preventing in yourself. That's a really simple step. And there's ways, if you are adopted or you don't know your family of origin, you can run things like single nucleotide polymorphisms or direct to consumer testing to get a sense of what these little hiccups are within you, that you can strengthen their expression where they're positives for you, and you can weaken or kind of like lower the expression of those that are causing you more problems. That's a really proactive thing that you can do to start to understand the lineage of your metabolic health. Number two, metabolic health itself. The fuel that you feed your body. What are you eating? Do you crave sugar? Do you get the hangries if you skip a meal? Do you have to eat the first thing you crawl out of bed in the morning? Do you have to have a snack the last thing you do at night? Do you have to get up in the middle of the night to have a snack? Are you able to comfortably go more than 4 hours without putting something in your mouth? If you said, if you have any of those issues, you are metabolically inflexible. If you are able to comfortably fast for 13 hours every day with nothing but water, maybe a cup of just plain black coffee or plain black tea, nothing in it, then you are likely relatively metabolically flexible. But you'd be surprised to know that most people can't even do that. So one of the strategies you can do is to start to see how comfortable you are, to see how long you can go with nothing but water, preferably overnight, so you spend the majority of that time sleeping. So for instance, finish dinner at 6 p.m. and don't eat anything until 7 a.m. Start with that. And as you master that and feel comfortable with that and feel safe with that and get the blessings from your healthcare team, then you can start pushing it a little bit more and work yourself up an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours or more, perhaps with some medical guidance if you're going beyond like an 18 to 20 hour fast, to see how much you can push yourself metabolically. Fasting is free for all of us, and it's one of the most powerful ways to insulin and carbohydrate restrict and really tune up our metabolic health. Number three, toxins. This is a big one. It's no longer a matter of if you're toxic, it's how bad is it and how can you best understand and mitigate your exposures. So first, let's look at the fundamentals. Where is your drinking water coming from? If it's coming out of the tap, if it's coming out of your refrigerator filter, if you're just pouring it through a little Brita filter on your countertop, you are not filtering out most of the things that have the toxicity that are impacting your metabolic health, that are literally turning on and off signals in your mitochondria that are leading to derangements in your metabolic health. So one of the things you can do simply is run your zip code through EWG.org, environmentalworkinggroup.org. They have a water database, and you can put your zip code in there and get a sense of what is in your local drinking water. It can tell you very specifically. And then you can talk to you can come onto our website on the Dr. Nasha approved store, or talk to your healthcare provider of their favorite water purification systems that are fitting for your budget and your lifestyle to help you start to clean up your water. Since we are mostly water, and since what our mitochondria have to interface with to create energy is the water we take in and the water we create out of the energy that our mitochondria make, you want to make sure it's good sourced water. The other thing is you start to want to get curious about everything you're putting on and around your body. So you want to look inside your medicine cabinets, under your kitchen sinks, in your garages. You want to look in your pantries. You want to look in your freezers. You want to look in your refrigerator. You want to read labels. You want to make sure your body care products are safe. You can run those through EWG and other data platforms as well to get a rating or to get a grade on those body care products. And I would encourage you to get rid of anything that grades lower than a B. Food labels as well. If you can't pronounce it, if there's more than 5 ingredients in it, if it was made in a factory, you probably should throw it away. All right. These are simple ways that you start to take out the garbage. Get rid of all the plastics. Hit yard sales and pick up glass bowls. Go hit Target and TJ Maxx and Ross at their clearance section to get those glass bowls that have the snappy lids. Just don't dishwash the plastic snappy lids. Start to keep your stuff in glass, start to get rid of your plastic, and start to stop drinking out of water bottles that are made of plastic or handling receipts that are coated in plastic. Stop eating glyphosate. If you are someone who eats a lot of processed food, you are eating a lot of glyphosate. If you are someone who eats a lot of grains and legumes, even if they're organic, you are eating a lot of glyphosate. If you are someone who loves your California red wines, you are drinking a lot of glyphosate. Or untested coffee, a lot of glyphosate. There's a lot of glyphosate exposure today, and it's one of our biggest endocrine disruptors, and therefore one of our biggest metabolic disease drivers. Number 4, microbiome. We've already talked about glyphosate. Glyphosate is what makes for a leaky gut. It has virtually destroyed the permeability of our gut, and it makes all the toxins go in, and it does not allow all the good nourishment to come in. So it's leaving a lot of us a little bit malnourished, deficient in major nutrients such as vitamin D, vitamin K, B12, magnesium, selenium, vitamin A. I think I'm missing a few, but those, you catch my drift. Those are the nutrients that are most critical for your immune system to function well, and for your metabolic health to function well, and for you to be resilient against chronic illness. Also with microbiome, if you're still eating a lot of factory farmed animal products, you're getting a lot of their antibiotics. And back to that water purification piece, you may also be drinking antibiotics in your water that's not being filtered out by the city water system. If you've had to take antibiotics for any reason, you have changed your microbiome for at least 6 months. And if you've had a recent colonoscopy, you've virtually wiped out your microbiome just with the colonoscopy prep that could take you over a year to replenish. We now understand that our microbiome is in charge of our immune system, our mental health, and the absorption and excretion of nutrients and toxins. So we want to tend our gut for sure. Next, we have the immune system. Unless you've lived under a rock the last few years, you've probably figured out that our immune system is an important thing that we need to foster. We know that it is very related to what's going on in our microbiome, so you want to make sure that that's being tended to. But your vitamin D levels are going to be one of your biggest clues to what's going on with your immune system. So is a simple CBC, complete blood count. You could go to a direct consumer lab and for $12, get your CBC run. Take a look at your white blood cells. Are they between 5 and 7? If they're too high, that's an infection. If they're too low, that's an immune system not functioning. You can take a look at your neutrophils and your lymphocytes. If you have more than 2 neutrophils to 1 lymphocyte, there's probably something skewed happening in your immune system that needs to be evaluated for. A neutrophil to lymphocyte ratio is prognostic for all-cause mortality. It's a really powerful way for you to tune up your system very inexpensively with this test. Platelets. A lot of us have seen elevated platelets in the face of infections and injections that can show viral overload, that can also show coagulation issues and poor perfusion. Poor perfusion, poor oxygenation is one of the first steps of damaging your mitochondria to lead to metabolic dysfunction. So that also should start to clue you in when we get to a few other drops in the bucket that exercise and moving the body and getting circulation going is important. But with the immune system, you also want to understand, are you suppressing your immune system in any way? Do you take allergy medications? Do you take steroids for any reason? Are you on biologics to treat an autoimmune disorder? Please, if you are, this is the time to go and work with someone who's trained in the terrain, who understands to help you understand why your immune system is not working well and help you get it back to working well. We need that to be your best prevention for all chronic illness, not just cancer. Inflammation. We are now known as the inflammation nation. Most people are walking around with chronic inflammatory processes. A lot of don't even know they have it. A C-reactive protein test can tell you how much inflammatory burden you have on board. Inflammation is also a switch to leading to hypermetabolic states, to leading to other areas that create metabolic derangement. So take a look at your inflammatory processes. The next one I've already alluded to, the oxygenation circulation piece. Is your blood pressure too high? Is it too low? Do you bruise easily? Do you have varicosities, varicose veins? Do you have a clotting disorder or history of blood clots anywhere in your body? These are clues that your coagulation pathways aren't working well. Exercise, hydration, things like fish oil, lowering your inflammatory foods. So this affects both your circulation as well as inflammation. Lowering your linoleic acid, your omega-6 fatty acids, and increasing your omega-3 fatty acids is one of the most profound things you can do to your whole metabolic terrain. It's going to lower inflammation. It's going to bolster your immune system. It's going to help your circulation, and it's going to help your metabolic health in the long run. The next one is hormonal balance. A lot of people think if you're having symptoms of hormonal issues that you're somehow deficient in a hormone. And yet what it's often more about is that your body has forgotten how to properly metabolize your hormones because it's getting so much input of so much endocrine hormonal disruption that the wires are getting mixed. Okay, we are all swimming in a swimming pool today of hormonal disruption, from glyphosate to the plasticizers to the flame retardants we're spraying on our couches and our baby beds, to even our female hygiene products and our baby diapers that we're putting right up against our skin, to our yoga clothes, for crying out loud, that are endocrine disrupting our bodies. If you are someone who is taking exogenous hormones because you think that's what's going to help you feel better, maybe have a better libido, better brain health, better bone health, I'd really invite you to speak to a terrain trained practitioner so they can help you evaluate for, because more and more studies are coming out that more exposure we have to exogenous hormones, either therapeutically or from exogenous endocrine disrupting chemicals, increases our risks of metabolic disease, chronic illness, and cancer in particular. And the final two, a lot of people are surprised when I talk about these, are associated with metabolic health, but stress response and mental health are those two big players. Stress response specifically, when you are in stress, your cortisol is high. When your cortisol is high, your blood sugar is high. When your blood sugar is high, your insulin is high in response. That cascade is one of the biggest drivers of metabolic derangement we have, and it's likely one of the least addressed in our culture and our community. So stress management is really key. You can even run a morning AM cortisol test. You want that range between 15 and 17. If it's too high, you've got problems. If it's too low, you've got problems, and you'd want to work with one of our providers to help you understand that more fully. And finally, mental health. Trauma is a big, big key player. So adverse childhood events, if you had more than a handful of those exposures as a child before the age of 18, there's a few questionnaires online. You could find out how many you were exposed to before the age of 18. The higher the number of those exposures, the higher your incidence of all mortality, of chronic illness, of cancer, and of metabolic dysfunction. we've been able to see that just somebody from a trauma place, they are not as metabolically flexible. Their body chemistry changes in response to that level of trauma. We're now understanding that things like bipolar disorder, depression, and anxiety are actually metabolic diseases. And when we can repair the metabolic processes, the mental health responds favorably. So there you go, a few things to take you through all the drops in the bucket of how each and everything is related to our metabolic health, metabolic milieu, mitochondrial function. And I hope that inspires you on this beautiful 10-10 of how to support your terrain and how to become a metabolic maven or a metabolic master for now and in the future.